Hello everyone, we are here in the studio and we are working away, and I just made a bunch of little needle books for my students, and I thought maybe you would be interested in this project. So I thought I would make one more on camera here just to kind of show you my process. So why would we make a needle book? These needle books can be great gifts. They can also be really handy for you if you are going to do any traveling and you just want a little travel sewing kit to have on hand. If you want to just keep your needles, like what do you do with them when they come out of the packet? You can put them in a pin cushion, but I don't know about you. Whenever I put needles in a pin cushion, I almost always lose them. I think this curved needle is the only one I can ever truly hold on to. The rest of my needles, they end up sunk down into the pin cushion. So that's not a real convenient way to keep them. And you could buy needle cases, but then where do you put that, right? And how do you hold on to it? These books are really handy for needles and pins so you have them on hand. It's a safe, easy place to store them. You can label each individual page if you want to with what kind of needle it is. So there's just all kinds of uses for these things. And I'll show you a little clip of, or a photograph or something of what the needle books look like. I'll put them on screen here. So for this project, you'll just need a few simple things. First, you'll need an inner page, and I cut mine 5x3. You can cut one of felt or thick wool fabric, or if you have like a thinner, like a lighter weight summer wool, or some flannel, some cotton flannel, that would be fine too. I think these are the pages that your needles and your pins are going to be stuck into to keep them preserved. And so you don't want something where the fabric's going to slip out, something with a little grip to it. And this this flannel, in my opinion, is a little thin. I've drawn this out. If you're not comfortable or you've not done a lot of projects, I would recommend cutting out the size that you need on a piece of card stock or something kind of thick, so you have a nice sturdy pattern. And then you can set it on your fabric and you can trace around it. And when you go to cut it, then you can be pretty confident in it. Now, because this is flannel, it might fray. So I'm going to cut mine using pinking shears. And pinking shears are scissors that have these ridges, right? The scalloped, or I guess it's a zigzag. And that's to stop this from fraying. If you look on my finishing seams video, go back and watch that. It's one of my first videos I made. I go over different ways to keep your fabric, finishing your seams off. And pinking shears is one way to do that. So I'm just cutting along the line. And I'm just going to cut them out. You see I've centered my pattern so that I can make the most of this kitty pattern fabric. It's a great project also for using up little bits of fabric. I'm going to breeze this. All right. And there are my pages, or my page. So I'm going to end up sewing these together. I'm just going to set them aside for right now. Another good use for this is a good way to use up scraps of fabric, small scraps of fabric that you have laying around. If you have a fundraiser coming up, or you want to work bazaars and you want to sell something, this is a nice little inexpensive thing that you can make and have in your booth or in your tent to sell. So it's just a handy little craft. So I'm going to go ahead and set these aside. The next piece I'm going to cut is going to be the covers. Yep, we'll do the covers next. And so the covers, we're going to need 2 of them out of a cotton fabric, and we're going to want these to be 4 inches by 6 inches. So I've got this lovely floral. I made a dress for myself out of this ages ago, and I have little scraps of it left over, and I'm always looking for little projects to do with it. So I think this is a great small project. So we need 2 of these, and I'll kind of, I'm not going to fuss over this too much, but I do want to make sure I'm picking up flowers. All right, I can see this pretty clearly from the back side. So I do want to make sure that I'm picking up flowers in the pattern here. So I'm just going to, once again, I'll just outline this. I'm trying to keep this on the straight of the grain, but I'm not fussing about that too much. If you're a little off the grain, it's not going to be a super huge deal. You don't have to be too precious about this. So this can be a good starter project. All right, I got those squares done. I'm going to loosely cut these out and give them a little bit of a press. All right, that's much better. So always start with clean ironed fabrics for the best results. For thinner fabrics, I really recommend these Fiskars scissors with the spring-loaded, especially if you're of a certain age like I am and your hands are starting to feel the years of abuse that you've put them through. These are so nice because they just spring back. I have a heavier set of Ginger ones too that I use for heavier fabrics. All right, done. Done and done. And the third and final thing I need to cut out, or bit of fabric I need to cut out, is I want a pocket. I want an interior pocket. So I need to cut a pocket 5 by 6 inches. So I have a pattern for that too, of course. Oh, no, all right, that was the last fabric that needs to be cut. We need 2 non-fabric things. One is we need this lightweight fusible interfacing. So fusible interfacing is this web-like material. And actually I'm using a mid-weight for this, not a lightweight, sorry. So you need a mid-weight fusible interfacing, and it's got this bumpy, gluey texture on one side, and then the other side is this poly kind of webbing stuff. And we're going to need 2 of the covers cut out of this. All right, so there's my interfacing. I'm going to set that aside. The final thing we need is a length of ribbon. We want 15 inches of ribbon. Any color is fine that will coordinate with your fabric. Anywhere from a 1/2 inch wide to a 1/4 inch wide. You can go a little thinner if you want. You could use string. You could use cording. I like ribbon. I like the look of it. And I like grosgrain ribbon because I like that it has a little grip to it. So just going to cut 15. Again, don't be too precious about this. It doesn't have to be exactly 15. Any of these measurements being a little off isn't going to be the end of the world. Which why, once again, this is a great first project. All right, now we've done all of our cutting. Now it's time for the prep work. And there's just a few bits of prep work we need to do. The first thing we need to do is we need to iron our pocket piece in half. So this is the short end and this is the long end. And we want to put the long ends against each other, wrong sides together, and iron that flat and get a nice crease in there. So I'm going to iron that. That's one piece of prep work. All right, like so. The second bit of prep work we're going to do is we are going to iron our fusible interface to our covers. So you want to glue side down and follow the manufacturer's instructions. There should be instructions that come with it on like some paper or on the outside of the package if you buy it prepackaged. So go ahead and iron it to the wrong side of your cover fabric. All right, so those are ironed down, and you want to make sure they're fused on there really well, really fused to that fabric. All right, so I'm going to set those aside. The third bit of prep work you want to do is we're going to stitch these together because they're 2 pieces of fabric and we want one. Again, part of the reason I'm doing that is so I have the thickness that'll hold onto the needles. The other part is purely aesthetic. I don't have a pattern, right? This is only printed on one side. And I want this to be really decorative. So I'm going to stitch these wrong sides together. And I'm just going to do a zigzag stitch all the way around the perimeter. So let me set my machine to zigzag. I have a new clamp holding my camera on. If you notice, we're in a new camera angle, and I'm kind of excited about it. So we are going to experiment with it and play around.
The next day.
So, funny story. I was getting ready to record this video, and I adjusted my new clamp thingy situation that I got going on, and I forgot to hit record again. So here is our finished book. Yeah, here's our finished needle book. Isn't it cute? I even put needles inside it, you know, and pins inside it because, yeah. So let's make another one. I got everything prepped and cut out. So if you're wondering why everything looks different, that's why. I've got 2 different pieces of felt here, or not felt. I got 2 different pieces of flannel here, just because I'm working with some scraps that were just laying around on my sewing machine table here. So it's both still flannel. Don't let it throw you that. And it's to show you, right? Like if you're going to do 2 pieces, like you could mix and match. Moose and squirrel.
Bullwinkle socks. That's so sweet.
Well, I knew you had the Rockies, and so I figured, you could wear Bullwinkle and Bullwinkle, or you could wear Rocky and Rocky, or you can mix and match Moose and Squirrel.
All right, so here's my pocket piece, folded and ironed. Here are my covers with the fusible interfacing fused. Got a little scrunchy, but it'll be all right. And here is my ribbon cut to 15 inches. So we'll set those aside for a moment. I've got my machine set up to a zigzag stitch, and so we are going to zigzag all the way around. Always put your needle in the needle down position when you are turning a corner. I'll try to get you another angle on that. So needle in the needle down position, turn and stitch. And this is just to meld these 2 pieces together so that they act as one. Oh, I lost at thread chicken. Do you see that? So what happened was my bobbin thread ran out. So I need to wind a new bobbin thread. I'll be right back. Okay, and we are back. So in the spirit of this project, I'm almost out of gray thread up above. So instead of winding a new bobbin, I instead used a bobbin I already have with some black thread in it. And we'll just continue on with that until I run out of gray thread. Then we'll just move on. So I'm going to pull us up a little bit. I'm going to change camera angle again. Okay, just a slight change of the camera angle because I found out where I had everything, and this was a little too in my way as I was sewing this down. You see I got a little far away from the edge here, but it's fine. So page done. Set that aside. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these ready and lay them out in order. So this is my inside page, I've decided. This, I kind of did some experimentation, like what's going to be a nice, maybe I want that as my inside page. There's not a whole lot going on there. What does this look like as a cover? Oh, that's a little nicer because I got the 2 roses with the rose buds in the back. There's not a whole lot, but that's a little nicer on the front. Right, kind of decide what you want as your front and back cover. I tried to think about that too while I was cutting the fabric out. Like, this is cute. This is part of an old bed sheet that I bought at a thrift store a long time ago, and I've never really done anything with. Like, that could be a cute cover. Do I like that better? And then the back cover. Oh, that's cute. I like that better. Okay. So this is my front cover, oriented like this. This is my back, or my inside cover. I shouldn't say back cover, it's my inside cover. And I want it like this, if I remember correctly. I was kind of messing around with it a little bit before I turned the camera on, because when I lay the pocket out, I can still see these flowers, but if I rotate it, I'm covering everything. You see what I mean? So just give it a little thought. Just give it a little bit of thought. All right, so this is where this is going to go, is like that. Then I see my two flowers up above. So I'm just going to put a pin in this to hold it in place. All right. Now I'm going to put my ribbon on. And yeah, I know this isn't the right shade of blue. I don't have any ribbon in the right shade of blue. So I just went with this old kind of 80s dusty blue color that came from who knows where. And I'm just going to pin this down in place, kind of at the middle point. Again, I'm not being too precious about these measurements. Just, I know my pieces are cut precisely, so as long as I'm pretty close in my pinning, everything will work out just fine. Nothing about this is crucial. Then I'm going to match this side up about the same distance from the top. And now that these pins are holding it in place, and notice I'm leaving them stick out a little bit. Let them stick out just a little bit so that you can see them. Now I'm going to pull this middle pin out, and I don't want this ribbon kind of flopping around because I could catch it in one of the side seams. So I'm just going to kind of fold it into the middle. I'm going to take this pin, come around from the back, and pin that ribbon into place, just to keep it from moving around on me. And that should hold it and keep it from getting stitched up. All right, so now I decided that this is how I wanted my cover to be. So I'm going to flip it over and put right sides together. And now I'm going to put pins to hold all of these layers. So I'm just going to do a couple. You do as many as you feel comfortable with, however many you want. And some of you have noticed that I don't often use pins, and I just kind of go for it when I sew. That's just how I've always been with sewing. Here, notice I am using pins. I don't want these layers to shift on me, and there's a lot of layers going on. And I got that satiny ribbon, and just a lot of things going on. So I don't in that pocket. So I just don't want these layers to shift on me. Okay, so I've got my sewing machine is taken off of zigzag. Now I'm going to go around and I'm going to stitch all the way around about 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to leave a little section open between these two pins to allow myself room to turn this inside out. So starting in the needle down position, go a couple stitches and then back stitch. Again, taking this up to about 1/4 inch away with my needle in the needle down position. I then turn. Always lift your presser foot when you're turning your fabric. I don't want to stitch through my pin, so I'm going to pull it out and complete the seam. All right, and again, I want to leave this open a little bit. And now I'll clip all of my threads. Well, my threads are clipped. I can now pull this pin out that was on the back side. So I am no longer needing it. And I'm going to clip my corners. I want to make sure I am not nicking the threads in my stitches, but I want to come as close as I can. That's going to get rid of all of that bulk in those corners when you go to turn this inside out. All right, now we just turn it inside out. And I have found it's easier to reach in and find the ribbon and use it to kind of help you pull things right side out. You don't want to tug on it too hard. This is a satin ribbon, and if you really go to town on it, it will pull out. So be careful. Don't pull on it with all your strength, but it can help you guide things out and get things going. And then your pocket will be right side out as well. To help you really get this out and oriented well, I'll fight with that corner a little bit. All right, so to really push these corners out, you'll need something pokey. You don't want anything too sharp. I actually have been using this comb, the metal end on this comb. It's got kind of a blunt point on it, but a point nonetheless. You can use a knitting needle, but be careful. Knitting needles and this can be too sharp. Again, you can force this through the fabric. So be kind of ginger and work those corners. Give them a gentle poke and kind of work them out to get them nice and crisp, or as crisp as you can anyway. These are the ones that are a little tougher because you got the pocket as well. There's a lot of fabric there. All right. And sometimes I'll even take my device, whatever I'm using to poke it, and I'll just kind of run it along the seams just to kind of make sure that they are pushed out all the way. So now that my seams are poked out, I'm going to tuck this in and I'm going to give it an iron. All right, so I've got this seam this is where we turned it inside out, and I'm just going to iron this down. Careful with your ribbon because some of these polyester ribbons can melt. So I'll be right back. All right, so I just give it a little bit of an iron. You just want it to be pretty flat all the way around. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you really want to give this a little bit of a crease where this opening is so that it lays nice and flat. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew all the way around. That will seal this up, and this will cause this to lay nice and flat. I think because I've got black on the inside and silver or gray on the outside, I think I'm going to stitch with my cover up and my pocket on the inside, but it honestly doesn't matter which way you stitch it. So again, about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I'm actually going to move the presser foot over so it's kind of a scant 1/4 inch, and I'm going to stitch all the way around. All right, and we are all the way around. So I'm just going to clip my threads nice and neat, and that gives it a nice, neat kind of look. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my page down, and I want to make sure, first of all, we should have a nice, about 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch rim all the way around. Should be about 1/4 of an inch if everything's been sewn down well. And you can see we're not perfect. That's okay. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect. Because I've got a different inside and outside fabric, I do want to kind of decide what's the first thing I want to see when I open it up. Do I want it to look like that? Or do I want it to look like that? I think I want it to look like that. I think I want to see the kitties when I first open it up. So butterfly is on the inside. Let's kind of center this. All right, I'm going to take my ruler and find the center line, which is at 2 3/4. It should be halfway. We should be at 5 1/2, which we are. We're a little shy of 5 1/2, but it's fine. We are close enough. We'll split the difference here. All right. Come down on this end and mark it. And I'm just going to draw a line. Make sure just matching up those little hash marks. And then we're just going to stitch down that center line. Move my needle back over. And I'm going to give it a little bit of a back stitch at the beginning and end just to lock things down. All right. So now I'm going to iron it flat. All the sewing is done. So now all we need to do is iron it flat. So I'm going to close it up. You can see our book is taking shape. And you can embellish this however you want. When we were trying to decide how the layout was going to be, this is where you could add like buttons or beads or anything like that. You could do it at this stage too if you wanted to. You could embroider, you could add anything on the outside here that you want. I'm just going to let the fabric shine, but think about that if you want to add anything, any lace or anything like that, you could do that. So I'm going to take this to the iron and I'm going to press it, and I'm going to be using some Best Press. Again, I'm not sponsored by any of this stuff. This is just a really great sizing that will help you press out your fabric and get a nice crisp product. You can see how it does not want to stay folded at all. And even if I press it with steam, hold on. So pressed with just steam is better. And if you don't want to get any of this, that's fine. You can use just steam and you'll get a usable needle book. But I'm going to press it with a little bit of steam, or with a little bit of Best Press. All right, there we are. And there it is after Best Press. That just creates a nice, smooth, finished product. There's only one thing left to do, and that is to cut the ribbon. So I'm just going to pull it out and give it a snip. And now we can tie it closed. And I just do a bow. And we are all done. That is it. So here is our lovely needle book. And again, on the inside, we've got our flannel fabric, so we can add needles or pins or anything to this that we want to preserve, anything like that. All kinds of needles and pins and things like that. You have little pockets that you can add things into. Let me get that a little press. All right, so we got little pockets that you could stick, you know, a threader into, or you could put, if you had a little bobbin maybe wound with some fabric that you wanted to keep, you know, you could stick that in there and have a little sewing kit to go. You could wind some thread onto a piece of cardstock and use that. You know, really, safety pins, paper clips, right? Anything in there that you wanted to go. And so here is our needle book. It's a really fun project, really easy one-day project, and you can use up a bunch of scraps with it. You can give them away as gifts. You can sell them. You can do anything you want, right? They're just really handy and really nice to have around. At this point, I've made a couple dozen. They go together really fast. You can get a production line set up and do a whole bunch of them at once, and it really doesn't take that long. So I hope you had fun. I hope this was interesting and informative. Give it a like, a subscribe, a share. Comment down below if you think this is a useful thing. And I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.